Hola a todos. Gracias por invitarme a hablar con ustedes hoy. It is a true privilege to be with you all here today at what really has become one of the year's best gatherings of readers and authors and publishers and book people. It's such an important event, and it's a real pleasure to be asked to speak here today. You'll notice that I don't have any slides today because I'm here to talk to you about an argument that we are having in our office at Kobo. It is a very vigorous debate. And around the table are all of the usual people who we would bring together to make a big decision. Finance and marketing, the people who work with publishers and authors, the technology and sales and operations and legal. And these are people who generally like each other. And Kobo is usually a fairly friendly place, and most of us are Canadian. So arguing is very unusual. But these are unusual times. We're arguing about whether we should sell a book in our bookstore if it was made with AI. And that discussion contains so many of the issues that are shaping what it means to be in e-commerce and ebooks and audiobooks today. And before I go any farther, I should introduce myself a little bit. I am Michael Tamblyn. I am the CEO of Rakuten Kobo. I hope you know who we are. If you don't, we make e-readers. We have an ecosystem that sells ebooks and audiobooks and subscriptions all over the world. And we really started with this one goal of how do we put a library in your pocket? How do we let you have your whole reading life with you all the time? And how do we make all of the stories in the world available to you in every language in every country? And I've been with Kobo since we started the company in 2009, and 15 years later, we sell ebooks to people in 190 countries. We sell e-readers and run Kobo online bookstores in about 32 countries, in many languages, with millions of people reading with us every day. So 10 or 15 years ago, at a conference like this, we would be talking about whether ebooks were good or bad, whether audiobooks were good or bad, paper versus digital. And now I think we've all gotten to a place where we can agree that we can read a book in many different ways, and however it happens, more reading is better than less reading. And we all know that we're fighting for time. Time for reading against TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and all the other things that people want us to spend our time on. Reading instead of media that has been sort of packaged our time as units of advertising. And I'm glad we have that settled because we've got bigger problems now. And that brings us back to our argument, which I will, of course, exaggerate for dramatic effect. Should we, as a bookseller who sells all kinds of books, some great, some terrible, sell books that are made with AI? And why are we having this discussion now? We have millions of titles available in our catalog. We receive thousands of new books a day. And the number of books that look like they are being made with AI or with a lot of help from AI is rising. And so what the teams inside Kobo were asking for, the ones who deal with the books that are coming in, was policy. Which books should we let in? Which books should we keep out? And we make decisions about what we allow into the store all the time. There are some books that we don't sell. We have a set of rules that we publish so that everybody knows what we sell and what we don't. That's part of being an online bookseller. We don't allow hate speech. We don't allow certain kinds of sexual content. We try to avoid false or misleading medical information. But this was much more difficult because it turns out that this moment that we're experiencing in the industry, in the world, is revealing a lot about what we believe is important about and why we do the jobs we do. In our case, what it means to be an author, an editor, a bookseller, or a reader. One of the reasons this discussion was so difficult was because we were really having three separate debates in one. Number one, how much AI is too much in a book? Number two, if we make a rule about AI, can we enforce it? And number three, in a world with AI in it, what kind of bookseller do we want to be? And I'm telling you this so that you can see one company's struggle with these issues and how we're facing them right now. And maybe that will help you with your own discussions. And I'll warn you right now, like, we don't come to any easy, clear answers on this. So our first debate is how much AI is too much. And this seems like this should be a simple question. For example, we're receiving thousands of books every day from independent authors through our self-publishing service, Kobo Writing Life. And this is where we see a lot of AI-generated books being submitted. Last year, we rejected 45% of the self-published books that we were submitted. Almost half of the ebooks that were sent to us, we said no to. And about 80% of the time, that was because those books had been, as far as we could tell, wholly generated by AI. Hundreds of thousands of books. And not just because they were wholly generated by AI, but because they were terrible. If a customer bought one, they would be disappointed, they would want their money back, and they would be angry at us for selling it. And so that part of the decision is easy. A book that is 100% AI and bad quality is something that we don't want in the store. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the decision is also easy. A book written by a human coming from a traditional publisher with a professional human editor, if it doesn't break any of our other rules about what we sell in the store, it goes into the store. And the same for any self-published title. Doesn't break any other rules, it goes in the store. And so this gives us two ends of the continuum. Very bad AI-generated books that we don't sell, good books written by humans that we do sell. I think we could all agree to that. The problem, and where the argument happens, is everything in the middle. We have many authors who are using AI-powered tools today. Nonfiction authors are using AI as an assistant to organize notes or collect and summarize research before they start writing. It's probably okay. Or an editor from a small literary publisher who has a huge stack of manuscripts to edit. They're a small publisher, they don't have money for a copy editor, so the editor uses an AI tool to do the first check of spelling, punctuation, and grammar. It's probably okay too. How about the author who has been struggling with revising a difficult passage? They go to Claude or ChatGPT or one of the 100 other tools, and they say, write me 5 different versions of these paragraphs, keeping my tone and style and the same number of words. And it gives her 5 different versions. She doesn't like any of them, but reading them allows her to find the inspiration for the version that she writes herself. Probably fine. What if she does use one of them? And to be fair, we sell a lot of very bad books that are written by humans. And they could probably use some help too. So what we've realized is that we're arguing over a very specific question. For books, is AI plutonium or is it salt? Plutonium is deadly in the smallest quantities. Its presence means death for anything it touches. Salt, on the other hand, can be good or bad depending on how much you use, useful or deadly. And for many authors right now, AI is plutonium. The AI models were trained using their work. They are angry, and they should be. To them, to use AI is to use the results of an act of theft. And even when we talk about using AI to help with book recommendations or search or discovery, the authors ask us, why would you use tools from companies that stole our books? Another way to frame it that we've heard described to us is, does the use of AI in writing become like plagiarism, where the presence of it means that a book should be disqualified from being published or sold? And so we have that, and at the same time, we know that more authors and more publishers are using these tools, sometimes in small ways, sometimes at a larger scale, outlining, organizing, research, proofreading, So if we say that the only good book is a book with 0% AI in it, we may end up disqualifying books that people deserve to read. And at the same time, we are using AI or machine learning techniques that are adjacent to AI to help make us a better bookseller. So we're using it with recommendations, we're using it in the analysis of books to enrich metadata so that books are easier to find and discover. We're using it in search so that you can do conversational search to find the books you want instead of having to type in keywords. So it's hard for us to say that AI is all bad when we're also using it in various ways to make the business better. So 100% AI bad, 0% good, and so somewhere between the low-quality AI slop that we're getting by the thousands and Cervantes and Borges and Balzac and Sarah J. Maas and Zadie Smith on the other, there is a line. And we agree that we need to draw that line, but we are having a lot of trouble deciding where it is. And that brings us to our second question. If we made a rule, if we decided to draw a line at 0% or 10% or 80%, could we enforce that rule with any accuracy? A rule only works if we can enforce it. And that means we can only make rules about AI content if we can detect it. And that used to be easy. AI content didn't look like a human wrote it. It looked weird. It was phrased badly or oddly or had repeating patterns that were easy to see. And that was true 2 years ago, even a year ago. Now it's getting harder and harder for us on the receiving end of all of these books to detect AI-generated text. Each time a new model is released, the quality of the text it generates gets better. We try to license software that can tell us whether a book contains AI-generated text, but so far, the software we've evaluated regularly mistakes text written by humans as being written by AI or vice versa. So our risk of falsely labeling a book as being made with or without AI is still too high. And we know that falsely accusing an author of using AI to write their book when they haven't can be harmful. None of the tools that we've evaluated so far are good at telling us with accuracy the percentage of a text that is AI. So if we want to make a rule that says a book has to be more than 70% or 80% or 95% human written, right now we don't have a test that is accurate that allows us to make that determination. We can ask publishers to tell us, to certify that books are being made by people. And we can do the same with self-published authors. We can give them a checkbox that can ask them to certify that this book was made without the assistance of AI, and that will help a bit. We can enhance the bookstore so that people can filter out books based on those checkmarks that have been given to us by publishers or by authors, but only once we have a reliable way to label them, which we don't have yet. We get thousands of books every day. We know that we can't look at them one at a time. And we need systems that can look at every book that comes in. So, at least for now, it is an imperfect process, and it's going to get harder. We're going to keep trying to detect books written with AI. We're going to end up using AI to help us figure out which books have been written by AI, and we'll combine that with human review so that we aren't just relying solely on machines. And the better our ability to detect AI becomes, the more sophisticated the rules can get so that we can decide what goes in and what stays out. And these questions are important because what you let into a bookstore and what you keep out is in some ways at the heart of that third debate that we were having. In a world with AI in it, what kind of bookstore do we want to be? Whether one is a small independent bookstore or an online retailer with millions of titles, we make choices all the time. And in some ways, the choices that we make are a big part of how we are perceived as a retailer. When we screen out some books, we screen out some books because we don't want them in our store. The authors can write them, but we don't feel like we have to sell them. And part of that's because we believe that being a bookseller is about making choices. So we know that we're always going to have some books that we don't let in for a whole bunch of different reasons. That's easy. But the real debate comes down to like these two viewpoints that are kind of sitting in tension inside a bookstore like ours right now. And I can sort of summarize it as readers first versus book community first. The position of readers first is that our job is to find readers the next book they want to read. And if that's our job, why should we prevent them from reading books that they might want to read just because they have AI-generated text in them? What if the next great piece of literary fiction or best-selling dark romantasy or nonfiction exposing political corruption is written with the assistance of AI? That reader's first position says that if the book is good and readers want it, we should fulfill our job of helping the reader find the book they want. So that's one side of that argument. The position of book community first says that yes, our job is to help a reader find their next book, but it is also to support an ecosystem of authors, publishers, editors who've created the work that the industry was based on. And new work, innovative, original work comes only from people and their experiences. If we let AI drown out those voices under a pile of machine-generated text, not only does it cost thousands of people their livelihood, but then it also costs us those new ideas and those new stories that would be written by those people. New stories stop being written. Our position at Kobo is more on the side of book community first. We believe we're at one end of a chain of a lot of different people who produce the work that we're trying to put in a reader's hands. But giving readers what they want is a strong impulse for a retailer. So we're lucky that for right now, they want less AI and not more of it. We haven't been faced with that choice yet of, here's a book that's on a bestseller list, and then we find out it was written by AI. And so this is where our debate has sort of come to an end right now. We're going to have more on the side of book community first. We have an up-in-the-air decision on how do we enforce rules, and we are struggling right now with trying to figure out where that line should be between humans only and all AI. But we think that there's probably somewhere in the middle that we're going to end up as authors end up using more and more of these tools themselves. But what you see is we are struggling with complex issues and with imperfect tools. Well, one thing we're clear on is that we have a book industry because people value words on a page, are willing to spend time and money for the pleasure of reading them. And it is a wonderful, fragile thing. We need authors to be able to make a living. Publishers too, probably. That means making a bookstore that takes care of their work, allows it to be found, keeps it from getting buried, brings it to the reader who can't wait to read it. That is a great set of tasks for a bookseller to provide. But it also means that we must value originality and creativity more than ever. The authors and publishers who are at greatest risk are those who follow predictable formula. Large language models love predictability, most of all. And I believe we're entering a time where anything formulaic, anything predictable, is going to lose value fastest, is going to get buried most quickly. But hopefully that also means that human creativity and real originality will become even more precious. I very much want that to be true. Thank you.
I don't know if anyone... Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
Hi.
I'm Jeanne Bracken from AudioSkills. Thank you very much for your talk. It was very interesting. I have so many questions.
I'm ready.
But I'll go at one for the time being, which to a certain extent is throwing stones against my own roof, because I'm a small publisher, independent. As a measure of quality, which you're obviously concerned about for your readers on the platform, which I think is fantastic. Have you not considered simply restricting to larger publisher names as a sign of quality?
No. First of all, large publishers are no guarantee of quality, believe me.
I know, but it's not the same. And when we've seen stories of independent authors who've uploaded 200 titles in the last year, and they were 200 AI titles, there is an extreme. We know independent authors are more likely to use AI, and we know large publishers are more likely to have standards.
So, independent authors, writing good books are a significant part of the business for us. So, like looking at our English language sales, for example, 1 in 4 books that we sell is coming from an independent author. So to say no independent authors would be like saying no Penguin Random House, 25% of the market. And so not only are they a significant part of the volume of the market, it's also where a lot of the innovation is happening in the market, to the degree that traditional publishers are pulling independent authors out of independence and into traditional publishing on a regular basis. So part of it is we don't want to lose the innovation that independent authors can provide. The second is we love them for their desire and passion to jump into any new project or promotion or business model that we have. It's always the independent authors that show up first. We're running Kobo Plus, our subscription service, which is now in, 16, 17 countries. It's always independent authors who are first at the door, while we then spend 2 years talking traditional publishers into how to get comfortable with that, or more. So they're filling a really important part of the ecosystem. But to your point, one of the ways that we're, with all of the imperfect tools that we are using to try and screen out AI right now, one of the most obvious is new author shows up who we've never heard of before and says, I would like to put 1,000 books into your catalog, please. That's a little suspicious. It's fairly easy at that level to say, I don't think you're an author, I think you're 3 LLMs in a trench coat. That's something that we see pretty often of, I have, 2,000 collections of recipes that have obviously been scraped off of the internet and jammed into books. Those we can head off right away. We just turn off the account. We say no. As this becomes a more agentic endeavor, as this is basically as people get smarter, it's not going to be that. It's going to be someone lights up an author account and puts in 5 books, and then lights up another author account and puts in 7 books. And we're going to get a lot of that. And that's why we really feel like we're in this race right now to be able to do detection on AI versus not AI, because the kind of crude measures that we have right now are going to stop working fairly soon. It's also hard to say independent author versus small publisher or even mid-sized publisher, because sometimes the AI offerings that have been presented to us are kind of in the shape of a small publisher or a medium-sized publisher. So we can't even sort of use entity as a way to do it anymore. It's hard, but it is I think if anyone in the physical retail business, anyone in the bricks and mortar business, are absolutely going to do that. They're going to use traditional publishing as the filter and hope that whatever they're getting from them kind of comes through that publisher's tests. And we see that in the contracts that publishers are offering to authors right now, all have great big AI clauses in them, because publishers are trying to make sure that they understand how these books were put together. But yeah, it is a moving target, and it's just going to get weirder as time goes on.
Okay, well, great. I didn't realize Kobo supported independent and small publishers as much.
Yeah.
So great to know
time.
that. Thank you.
Always good to hear from you, Michael.
Always
Todd
good to see you.
Carpenter with NISO. I enjoyed your framing as a sort of philosophical one. And it made me think of an Esther Dyson quote from the 90s about garbage subtraction. that the purpose of the publishing industry is, in part, selection and curation. And if you are, and this might be a challenge with you and your business model, if you're running a small bricks and mortar bookshop and you have 50 square meters, you have a limited amount of space. And the problem with you and Amazon and others is you have unlimited space. And how do we navigate that tension?
Yeah. I think we are at a new inflection point in that right now. So we had inflection point number one, which was let's do online e-commerce, and then we can sell all the books that are traditionally available. So every book, presumably, that's in print, that you can get through a wholesaler, that you can get through a publisher, we're going to put online. So that's like version number one. Version number two, which came with ebooks, was let's also open the door to independent authors and let them come in, and we're going to have this whole other additional catalog, in some ways like as big as the first one, of people who have never gone through traditional publishing but get to make their books available as well. And that's been both an engine of growth and a source of richness in the catalog that we didn't have before. And now we get version 3, which is let's supercharge that with an infinite supply of AI-generated text. And what I think, as was the case in those first two, the way that that business model and the way that that curation model looks is not the same as you move from one transition to another, because it's really easy for the catalog to get overrun with AI-generated stuff. We're not even limited by the number of hours that an author has in a day to write anymore. We're really just limited by the number of tokens they want to burn, and it turns out they're willing to burn a lot of tokens. What's interesting about that is that it kicks up the question of curation and filtering and the shape of the bookstore that you want to have in a way that we didn't have in either of those two versions. When you're holding back, when you're trying to, you've already got that problem when you're trying to create some shape and contour around, say, 10 million titles or 8 million titles. But when it's 100 million titles, in a way it's a challenge of degrees, but not necessarily it's a difference of scale, but not a difference of type. We still have a screen that's this big that we're trying to show people the world of books through, so it's already a vicious filter of what shows up in there. And we're going to have to do a lot more and much more intelligent filtering to make that world kind of make sense. But it's the same kind of problem that we've had already. It's just going to be a lot more and a lot weirder, and frankly, a lot worse. Like, it's just, there's a lot of really bad stuff you can make with a machine. And we're going to find ourselves, we already find ourselves kind of bending under the strain of that.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
You explained to us in a very convincing way the point of view of the bookseller. Can you shift your perspective to the point of view of the reader?
Yes.
And give us how 2-3 types of readers might react to this? Thanks.
Yeah. We have, it's been easy to look at, say, the author community, for example, because they're very loud and they write very well. And so those opinions come up to the surface very quickly. Readers are, I think, more difficult because really we see them through their choices. And we know that there are some readers who say, no, I don't want this. I want my books written by people. I care about the authors that I support. I want my money to go to them. I don't want to, kind of put money in the pockets of somebody who's written something with a machine. So that's like one type. We have people in the middle who kind of don't care. And especially, I would say, a subset of users who are really looking at books and digital publishing and ebooks as a way to make their, the money that they have available for reading to go as far as possible. So somebody who's willing to give them a 10-book fantasy series that they get to read for 5 cents, because that's the marginal cost of generating it, with machines, perfectly happy to do that. And that's I think that's where some of the tension and difficulty in running a store is. We know that there are some people who will buy it if we let it in, but it does mean that we will be taking money away from authors who've written it themselves. And then the third kind, I think, sit more in the more nuanced category of knowing that AI tools are available, knowing that they are useful, aren't going to prejudge an author for using it or not using it, but just care about the quality of the work. Is the book good? And I don't have good empirical data on the distribution of those 3 buckets, but those are kind of what we see right now. And the no AI of any kind group is very loud. The other ones are not loud. So it's easy to overweight the first group, but we'll find out as we go. But we do hear, not so much from our platform, from other platforms, that payouts on self-publishing in subscription services, for example, are falling through the floor as AI shows up and takes more of the reading time inside those platforms. And so authors are losing money to this right now. And we have to decide to what degree do we want to try and hold that back. There was a question back there.
Thanks.
Last one.
Oh,
okay.
The music is playing. Well, first of all, I really like your observation that the author's work will be changing to make better use of the human qualities that AI can't do. So the formulaic stuff. So stuff will change. I always think about when photography was invented, that portrait painters were gonna have to reinvent themselves to really dig deep and find what the real human quality of their work could be, and then all new forms of art emerged. So I think that's going to solve itself. But for the discussion that you're having internally, how do you think about incorporating the public in there and just tagging all the books with likely used AI for a percentage or something like that, and just have filters in your searching system so that everyone can just decide for themselves whether they think they want to.
Listen, there's a whole standards conversation going on right now. The Onyx folks are digging into this whole question of how do you create, essentially, exchange mediums that allow a publisher to tell us how much or how little AI is in there. As soon as they do that, we can start to build filtering for that. The problem is we know that people lie.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
And especially people that are trying to game subscription services or are trying to capture minutes that are being used by authors lie a lot. Right. And so traditional publishers who frankly are who we have the least trouble with are probably going to use those standards, and that's going to allow us to create a level of filtering that I think will make a lot of people happy to see. But it's not going to stop the fact that we're going to have a whole lot of people trying to push stuff in and game the algorithm, take advantage of people that want to read a non-AI book by saying it's not AI when it's all AI. We're going to get a lot of that, and that then creates customer dissatisfaction and makes people lose faith in the filters that we're creating, which is why we're going to end up investing millions of dollars in content moderation and content filtering around AI that, frankly, we'd rather be doing other things with, but we think it's probably the only way to maintain the integrity of the store. Right. But yeah, that's we want that too, it just won't be enough on its own.
Yeah, no, you really need book clubs where real people are then recommending books in
that
our
would be
system.
Nice. Love that.
Thanks.
You. Okay, thank you, everyone.